This took us a bit more time than we originally thought, because this is actually an article about what happened at Uluru and the surrounds. And it we originally thought we'd get this done about a week ago, didn't we,
We
Evan?
did, yes.
Yeah, but unfortunately, a few things turned up, and also we wanted to make sure that the references we used were okay, and that took a bit of time. And there's still a few issues with that, but we've got through that. And we wanted to make sure that when we did this, we had something that would give people some substance. This article is broken up into two sections. A section before the different sorts of events that took place, that the drama that took place leading up to this. And to be honest, if I won't go through most of the drama that took place before the event, but I can tell you that on the day of the afternoon of the 20th, the manager of the sales, that each person had was put underneath their door when they went back. Every unit got one of these. And it primarily told us that on the 21st, that everybody from Sydney, not the hotspots, but everyone from Sydney's would be locked down. They wouldn't be able to be fed. They'd have to wait for food to be brought to them. And there would only be one plane leaving tomorrow morning, Jetstar, one flight in, which would be empty, no one bringing no one in and taking people out. And if you didn't get on that flight, you're in big trouble. And the police were coming the next day, and they were going to go around and make sure everyone was locked down. And lo and behold, come the next day, two police came. Nobody came to any door. And then later, taking people from Sydney, flights would resume as normal. And earlier on in that day, not so long after actually, it was announced that Uluru had been locked down for the whole of the 21st and the 22nd, and no one could get in or out. And that lockdown was announced at 10 o'clock, and had already been open for 3 hours. Had to go around and chase people out. They didn't get them all out. So there were some really weird things leading up to this event, and there's a lot more. But let's talk about the second part of this, is what actually happened. Now, I wasn't even sure there was a ceremony, and I think I made that clear in every presentation I gave. I just wasn't sure. And I want to thank what we account of around 15 million people for investing in something that I didn't even know until 24 hours before there was even a ceremony. And I made that clear. We made that clear very many times. So lo and behold, there was one. It did happen. And at the last moment, I took the rocks there because I was told by people that I shouldn't have listened to, that they were needed in the ceremony. Well, I spoke to some people there involved in this, and yeah, they did want them, but they weren't essential. And it became obvious to me that the people who needed them more were the people who came. So anyway, to cut a long story short, ceremony did take place, and even when it began and I knew this was real, I thought to myself, when we come out of this, what proof have I got that anything happened? And it was a fair call, because I mean, what was I going to give people except to say I felt good? And that certainly happened. But that was a big issue. Firstly, that it was going to be, there was a real ceremony, which there was. And secondly, that everything we were doing was legitimate and actually had a function in this, even if there was a ceremony. Maybe all the stuff we were doing was just window dressing. Well, that's the beauty of this. Well, this is why we waited a bit of time, because the evidence has poured in from all over the world that this ceremony was legitimate. And what we've done is we're not going to put it all out at once, because there's too much. And I think it's best that it's drip fed over a period of time, because this is going to go on for a few years and people are going to need evidence. They're going to need something to hang on to, because I know for a fact, I've been told, this is not over by a long shot. Yeah, there are going to be two roads. In fact, in the article we've written, Evan's not here at the moment, but in this when we're trying to give you evidence, and the Hoppy quote is about the fact that it starts with the fact we've spoken of the 11th hour many times, but you need to go back and tell people now that that hour, the final hour, is now with us. And it's a description. And I know the Mayans call them the two roads, and we've called them the two paths, and then the Hopi actually referred to them as a river. That some people jump in and many don't. And that's the same description of the change, and it's really important we put that in. We close that particular section with a quote from Dolores Cannon talking about the change again. And the reason we put that in is even though we've got a lot of empirical evidence, I wanted to give you philosophical evidence from the keepers of the old ways, and the Hopi is certainly one group that's part of that. So we put that in, but what we're addressing is what comes next. We believe that the evidence is irrefutable. So what we've done is this: we put an article together to be used in what we call seed dreaming. And the article goes like this. First of all, there's a section about the issues about why we thought this wasn't going to happen. Then that it did. Then we've given you 7 seeds from what we call the seed dreaming, that when you go out and talk to other people, because that's your role in this, you have to now get out in amongst people who are doubting this, who are concerned, who are expressing fear, because the world is going to be COVID first and the world second from now on. At the moment in Australia, I was watching the TV, the news today, and in Australia we have no reported cases of COVID on the whole of Australia. Yet the panic is continual, it never stops. It's about what's going to come next, which vaccine we've taken. We've got one that works at 62%, and everyone's saying, oh, that's fantastic. That's really good. That's all we need. And others saying it's a load of rubbish. We've got that going on. We've got the potential of the people we bring in from elsewhere that are going to be hidden away from us. And then we've got the potential it's going to come any second, and it just stays there and it never goes round. To an extent, I felt like we committed ourselves to this ceremony simply because there was no option left. If the ceremony doesn't work, we're done for. This world will be terrorized forever, and it'll get worse. And whatever's in the vaccines, and I'm not convinced that they're right or wrong, that's not a point. I'm not going to do that right now. What I'm going to do about is the positivity. Now, the 7 seeds we've given you, what we're saying to people is when you engage them in conversation, they'll want proof. They'll want empirical proof for the brain, for the left-hand side of the brain that craves it. They've been to school too long. They've been trained into getting this. So we've given you 7. 3 were put up and briefly mentioned. I'll repeat what they are. One is a measurement of the Schumann resonance. And then you'll see at 7:30, it goes from 0.3 to 30 something, which is an increase of 100-fold. I've mentioned that before. Now that's really important because it's the person who had explained it to us, that knows some scientific sort of understanding of what was going on, pointed out one thing I think is really important. He showed us for the next 4 hours how it maintained that level. And then it dropped, but he said, look at the next day. It's still reverberating to what was put in there the day before. It's still continuing. And it became obvious to me that this work is not finished yet. And I'm going to talk about the 2 things that are needed. Number 1 is the seed dreaming. And in that, we've given you the Schumann resonance to show you that at 7:30 through to 11:30, that meditation turned on the planet. And it turned it on 100-fold time. That is actually there, evidence that can be proven, and it's part of the story. Secondly, the second picture we gave you, and we've got more of it, is that what took place in Croatia when that golden orb just came out of nowhere. And it looks like there's a disc above. I'm not going to go into the UFO story, but there's a golden orb that went into the ground there, went into the water. And 2 days later, Croatia had the largest earthquake it's ever had. And then you've got the third piece of evidence, which is the blue. We've mentioned that before in the sky. And we mentioned the fact if you look at the horizon, there's no blue at all. But there in the middle of that cloud, in that gap, is a massive iridescent blue, the brightest I've ever seen in the sky at any time. It doesn't belong there. Now, what we've added to that is another photograph of the sky taken by someone else, and taken about 10 minutes before, when the sky is a uniform grey, no colour, no hot pink, no purple, no blue, No nothing. No gold. It's nothing. And then 10 minutes later, where it's turned into this amazing light show with this blue point in the center. And you try and explain to me how that happened in 10 minutes, and I can't see it. I really can't, because I watched that cloud coming in from the other side. And fair dinkum, we all thought it was going to rain. It looked so dark and grey, it was going to rain. It turned into something completely different, and everyone will back up that up. We all watched it, and we thought it's going to rain on top of us. The cloud changed. But then we've got two other pictures there. We've got a picture from Atlanta, Georgia, which if you were looking where we were, you went to the opposite side of the earth and came out in a straight line. That's about where you come out. And there it's night time. And there's the moon. And you can see it amongst the cloud. But here's the trick. All around the moon and all around the cloud there is the same blue. And someone's going to say, oh, it's a coincidence. It happened at 7:32 on opposite sides of the world. It's not a coincidence. And for the people who go for coincidence or camera malfunction, the last one, which is a video, not an actual photograph, and you've got to go down past the article to lock in, but you'll see it. And it only goes for 1.5 seconds. And what it is, maybe 2 seconds, I think. It's about a half a second of normal. Then these people have made two comments. Nobody behind was using a flash, and if they were using a flash, the light would be intense around the center and then fade towards the edges and margins. Here it's all the same. For 1 second, out of Uluru, this at 7:32, there is a massive amount of white energy that covers the whole of the sky and everything, but it doesn't go downwards into Uluru. That maintains its color. We've checked it 5 or 6 times, and it goes out of Uluru at 7:32. We believe the magic box, which of course, as you now know, was Uluru itself. It was turned on at 7:32, and that's the most important part of this story. And you can try as much as you want to dismiss the fact that the Croatian picture has telegraph lines running in front of it, but you're going to say it's Photoshop. I don't know how you're going to maintain that that flash of light that nobody saw until I looked at the camera later was anything but the truth. And then you've got the last part of this, and we got permission for this one. It took us a bit of time. That held us up a bit getting, but we did get permission of a story. And this is the actual. It's in the PS that the cow that came towards her, there was no other cows around. And she didn't know this cow that came and then stood alongside her while she was meditating at 7:32. And at 7:32 began to cry. Now, I got to be honest, I didn't know the cows could cry, and my wife looked it up on the internet because I wasn't sure that any animal bar us could cry. And saltwater animals with salt in their tears, but no, I didn't know that. Anyway, we looked it up, and cows can actually cry. I didn't know that. I mean, I think most people didn't know that either. So, I mean, my point is, people can say the last one, you don't have a photo. No, we don't. But why don't you put it next to the other 6 photos? And then if you read the story about the cows, it makes perfect sense. Mind you, we got many stories of cats and dogs going ballistic and changing for the whole day in ways, and that's been recorded time after time. The reason we put that one in is it's the one we can least prove as opposed to the flash of light. That's pretty tough. And the Schumann resonance at exactly 7:32, that's pretty tough. And the lights there in the sky are tough. But this one is the least convincing. But if you put it in context of the other 6, you'd end up saying, well, why not? Everything else happened. Why wouldn't the cows cry? And why wouldn't the dogs and the cats and all the animals react? And remember, when we started our ceremony there, we had 2 gulls that flew over the top of the rocks when I was half comfortable with them being in the right place. And they were saying the same thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is this particular video and article about? The article is for seed dreaming, because when you go and see people, and remember I was asked at the conference, the Cosmic Conscience Conference, when we were given a question and answer, somebody said to me, and I want to thank those guys again for putting that on, because none of this would have happened if they hadn't have done that. Certainly. Somebody asked, how can I make sure that my family get this and lock into it? And the answer is you can't. It's not your job to. What I'm saying is your job is to talk to people. If you believe this is happening, is to talk to everyone you know and try and convince them. But it's you throw the seeds out there. Where they fall is not your family, your close friends lock this in is not your business anymore. I want to refer to the quote that we've used from the Hoppy, and the last line is, "We are the ones we are waiting for." And they make it very clear in this prophecy when you jump into the water, you do this on your own, and you celebrate the people who are with you in that water as that stream runs down towards what this is about. And the ones who refuse to go in the water, who are scratching and refusing not to, are going to have a miserable time because they're going to gradually realize they should have gone in, and that's going to hurt them until they leave here. And for them, you don't take no attachment to what they say to you, what they say in anger, frustration, whatever. That's how you react to it, whatever. But you can't let that affect you in any way. And the Hopi make it clear, if you do, your spiritual journey finishes and you might as well get out of the river. They're very clear on this. So we're asking each person to do that, to meditate, sorry, to send that energy out and talk to people about that. And if they don't believe it, then refer them to this article. And someone wrote to me and said, try and make your article smaller. I said, I'll have a go. I said, I'll try and get under 2,000. It was 3,600. I couldn't get close because I needed to explain, for those who don't believe this, to give them one last chance with those 7 instances of what took place at that time. And that might tip them over, and it may not. But remember, this is, we are the people we are waiting for. You cannot make another person think like you. All you can do is give them the evidence, talk to them about it, show them how you feel about it, deliver it from the heart and the soul. And if that doesn't work, say to them, go to this article, read it, and see if they can be convinced through the mind. And if that doesn't work, you can keep mentioning it, but don't hassle them if they don't come your way, because it's not your business anymore. The way this works, that every person on this planet makes a judgment about where they should or shouldn't be. And they make it themselves. They can't do it in cohort with another group. They can't do it if they belong to a team, because that makes no difference here. There will be atheists who will move on to the upper side. Remember, those people did good things and had no belief that there was an afterlife and no reason to be good. They could just as easily be evil. And it makes no difference because you're only here once. So the reason for them behaving good wasn't because they thought they were getting a carrot. It was just intrinsic and they were doing the right thing. So it's not going to be a matter of whether you belong to a race, whether you belong to a religion, whether you belong to a belief. That will make no difference to the judgment you get. It doesn't believe what you believe. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It's all about you, yourself, and where you are and what you're in. No one else. And if you are a person that wants to wallow in negativity and attack other people, that's your choice, and there's nothing can be done otherwise. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to close with one last thing. It became obvious to me, and many people have written back and said, oh, we'd like to do that again. Well, here's the trick with this. We're dancing in the dark now. I don't know how this works out. I didn't even know there was a ceremony until there was one, but there was. And I wasn't sure it was going to work until I now know that it did, and it did. But how we do this over the next 5 years, the clue was in what this gentleman who's got more scientific knowledge than me, who sent us the Schumann resonance, said. He said that meditation was still resonating inside that Uluru the next day. Well, it says to me something. If we continue doing it, it will continue resonating and growing. So maybe part of this deal is, and I'm only guessing here, but I'm thinking it's right, that if we wanted to get into 4th gear, we've got to keep feeding it. So this is what I'm going to say. And remember this, that all the 15 million people, and it might even be more than that, we're not sure, but it's at least that did this knowing, number one, that we said we're not even sure it's going to work. That's a leap of faith. Number two, sometimes they did it in appalling conditions. That's another leap of faith. So this is what I would say to the people who've done this. Do it again. Go to the place. Don't go to Uluru to do it, because your ceremony doesn't belong there. Okay? We did one in the football field next to the toilets, aiming at a goalpost, and we were 20 k's away. That's where it belonged. It didn't belong within the precincts of the ground there. And if I was to do another one there, that would not be offensive. But if I was to move it onto the grounds of Uluru or Katajuk or anywhere close or anywhere near a sacred site, that would be wrong. And the same with you. Wherever you did it before is the place where the royal telephone you've created is functioning. It's already there. So if you go back there and take other people there and take them in at a better time, in Iceland, can I suggest you get daylight for 1 hour? Go there rather than when you went before. When it is a decent day, when it's warmer, do it then. Then there's no more time restriction now. All I can say is that all of those people, wherever they did their meditation, then go somewhere close to that again because that was working there. You don't need to go to a new place because you've already opened up that place. Why go somewhere else? You've got a telephone. It's fully open 24 hours a day. And you don't even need to dial in. It's already there. It's off the receiver and it's ready. So go back. And why not? Because it worked. Number one. Number two, how will it help you and the group that goes there? It will give you solidarity as a group and give you strength. Pardon me. Because I can tell you this, the group that don't want this to happen will fight this all the way through. I do not think it's a coincidence that we got an official government letterhead telling people the day before at the ceremony we were doing, making them fearful and scared and worried about what happens about my children. What about Christmas? I don't have Christmas with my family anymore. That worried them. And they were scared about what to do next. And that was the point of it. And they expected the police to be knocking on the door, locking them inside there, because there were notices up that night at takeaway restaurants saying, if you're from Sydney, not the hotspot, but the whole of Sydney, we won't serve you. Ring and we'll deliver to you. And in the morning, they went back into the kitchens and they went back to the restaurants and no one asked a question. And then Jetstar changed from saying no more flights to we're doing it as normal. Something was going wrong there. And then the park gets closed for 2 days. Something was going on there too. And I think that now that the rock has begun its journey, we need to keep feeding it. So I'm going to suggest to people, don't ask. You asked before and we gave you permission. We didn't need to, but we did it because you were doing it the right way, old way, which is when you get information that's not yours, you go to the source where it comes from and say, can I use it? And the people who didn't do it probably didn't read that bit. It's no drama now because it worked either way. But you don't need to ask permission again. You've done it. And you, the people who did it the first time, you're the guys, if other people come, you should be conducting that ceremony because you've done it once and they haven't. And whatever you did the first time, do it again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be reporting in as this continues. We're going to continue putting up so much evidence, time after time after time. What we've given you this time with these 7 seeds is enough. With photograph and more accounts. And in there, you're going to say to yourself, no, this can't be 28 rare cloud occurrences at the same time. It can't be a massive different camera malfunctions at the same time because it's all happening at the same time. It actually happened. So if it has happened, if you were part of it, you have a responsibility now. You started the process, you turn the machine on, it's in first gear. We need to pick it up into second, to third, to fourth, and overdrive. And I think we're the ones who've got to do that. And the best part is nobody's organising this. Remember what the hobby said, we are the ones who we are waiting for, then we have to do something. Nobody tells us how we do it. We did it the way we did it before, and it's you that's doing it. So welcome to a new world. It is what comes next. And I think at the end of next month in February, we'll put up our first online conference. I'm lining up the last 2 people out today, and we'll put that up very soon. And it'll be all about one thing. What sort of person and how do we live in this new age of old ways with variations and changes? Until next time, thank you.